Hi, hello, hello, hello. Let's talk swatching today. So I want to show you the right way to swatch. Well, okay, maybe my right way to swatch because I'm sure there's different ways to swatch for everybody, right? This is a stamp I've got from a handmade paint maker. She also makes a lot of her own products, and this is one of them. So it looks like this. I cut these papers out and I stamp each one individually, and I'm still working on getting my stamp perfectly pressed. And so these are some of my ones that I first started with. And so I'm just going to show you with those. Okay, so the reason why I want to show you how to stamp well is so that you know what your paint can do, what range your paint can get. So this swatch doesn't really show you that, right? It just shows you this one kind of granulated picture, right? It doesn't show you how light it can get. It does show you how dark you can get because I have the mass tone up there, but it doesn't show you the variations and the way that the water can really work for it. I didn't do these great. So today I want to redo them with you and show you how I do them and walk you through the process as well. So this one, it's great, it's beautiful, right? These swatches are beautiful, these paints are beautiful, but there's just not enough there to give you the full story, right? So this one also has some water going back into it. I let the water pool up. Same thing here, beautiful color, but again, and again, just the water, right? So I want to show you how to do these better so you can see all that is going on with your handmade paints or your commercial paints. I am a sucker for handmade paints, and so I do lean towards those. So I'm going to take my pen. This happens to be a fountain pen. I'm going to go ahead and write the name of the paints on these. These are Masha handmade paints. This one is ultramarine purple. So we're going to write ultramarine purple. You can also write the pigment number. If you want to go back and look those up, feel free to do that for your paints. I will add that later on. I'm not going to do that right now. Right now, I just want to make sure it is this one, purple, shadow purple. Got a little paint on the side. It's kind of hard to read, but I know I could have done this beforehand, but this is just part of the process so that you can get everything in order and have it how you want. So we have ultramarine, magenta, and lastly, we have weathered rose. Okay, it's really good to have these well done swatch cards because then you can really know what you're getting into before you start your project, before you start mixing, especially if you know the pigment numbers, what mixes well with others. So let's go in order. Boom, boom, and boom, and let's get started. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our brush. I'm just going to use a round, not an expensive brush because I don't really like to use expensive brushes because it kind of smears the color around. So this did have some paint on the brush from what I did previously. I'm just going to dab it off with a cloth. I'm going to go back in with my cleaner water. I have 3 buckets of water in front of me. I like to use lots of water so that I always have a clean option. So what I'm doing is I am wetting the entire square with water, okay? I'm wetting it evenly. I'm not adding puddles and puddles and pools of water. There will be, let me see if I can show you, a nice sheen. See that? And that pooling in the corner, you don't really want that, so I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to grab that with my brush, wipe it on a cloth, grab it a little more with my brush. Okay, and you want to make sure all the parts are wet. Okay, and if you see some dry parts, go ahead and add some more water. You can also just kind of tilt your paper around and make sure it's really wet, okay, without puddling. So I'm going to go ahead and grab anything that's pooling from the corners. Puddling and pooling, I mean, it's not end of the world if it does, but we don't want those back runs like we had last time, right? We don't want all that water. So now I'm going to wet my brush lightly, dab it off. I'm going to go in my paint, and I'm going to get a nice load of paint on that paintbrush, and I'm just going to start swatching in my upper left corner. The water's already on the paper, right? So we're just going to let it move. And we're going to help it. We're just going to nudge it around a little bit, right, with our brush. I'm just going to nudge it around. Okay, we're going to get the whole thing covered. This is how I do them. Not right or wrong. There's many ways to do swatches. Okay, so I'm going to move this color all the way around this entire square. This is the way I like to do it. Then I like to leave this right-hand corner a little bit lighter. So what I do is I start taking some more of the weathered rose and I start dropping it in that left-hand upper corner and kind of just kind of dropping more and dragging and pulling it and dragging it a little more, okay? I want to keep my darkest up in that corner there and then kind of edging out. And then I'll just kind of tease it, if you will, to the other areas. So then I'll go back over here and I'll use whatever's left on my brush to kind of fill in the rest, okay? All right, so now I'm gonna rinse off, not rinse, I'm gonna grab a little more water and I'm going to just darken up just a bit more. Remember, I wanna see the full range, so I wanna use enough water to get this paint to move, to get it, so you can even take a bit of your paint and just drop some water drops in there to get it to move around so that you have a good range of what this color can do. Now you can pick up your swatch and just sort of tilt it, see where the water's pooling, let it kind of go all the way around so you get an even. Tilting it like this will help you get a more even swatch, and you can start to see where colors are doing some really interesting things already. And so let's see, let's just make sure this is keeps moving. If we want to, we can pull it all in the corner and we can pick up any excess. Because again, we don't want a ton of extra because then it will just go back into the swatch. Okay, again, so this area over here, now let's do our mask tone real quick. What mask tone means is just we're going to get as much pigment with the least amount of water up here so that we can see how dark this color goes. Once you figure out how dark this color can go, that's how dark you want your upper left-hand corner to be so that you can kind of start that range somewhere, right? This is our starting point, so to speak. This is as much as the pigment can do. This is at full throttle. This is not using a lot of water, so we're not going to see a lot of granulation. We're basically just going to see how dark this color can go. And as you can see, it goes pretty darn dark, more like a, well, I don't know, blueberry raspberry, like a really, really dark, right? So since I know this now, I am going to add a little bit more to my corner just to kind of match that so that I have a good starting point and so I know my full range of this color. Okay, so there we go. I feel like that matches that, and now we'll just kind of let that dry and do its thing. Okay, we'll put you off to the side, weathered rose. Now we're gonna move to ultra magenta. And I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm not gonna be super paranoid about rinsing my brush, but I'm gonna rinse it. If you want to get a little bit of paint on your brush to see where your water is going, you're welcome to do that. That way you know all the spots are covered. You can kind of tell how evenly it's covered. I will often do this myself. I think that's a fine way to do it. Again, there are many ways to make swatches, right? You can make small swatches, big swatches. You can keep them in a book. You can do them by color. You can do them by brand. You can do them by maker and then by color. I do mine maker by color. So I take all my handmaids and I separate each maker out and then I separate them by color. And I like that because then I know what range I have in that color and in that maker, right? So I know which ones I need backup of. I also keep an Excel file. Well, it's out of date now. I have not been keeping it up, but I was really good there for a minute about keeping an Excel file of all the paints I had so that I wasn't buying duplicates. I have since then put myself on a more strict buying. I like to use the makers I love, so I have not been buying a lot of other paint makers paints because I prefer to use the ones that I really love instead of trying a bunch more at this point in time. Maybe down the road, but for now, I just really love the makers that I love and kind of want to stay true to them. I feel like if I use other paints, I sometimes feel like I'm cheating on them. I know that sounds crazy and silly, but it's kind of a small little art world, and so I don't know, it just feels good to, you know, use what I have. And, you know, obviously I like working with other people as well, so that will happen at sometimes, but I do love supporting handmade versus a bigger company. Okay, so now that we have this kind of spread out, I want to keep that light. You see I'm kind of losing that. I feel maybe I can drop in some water drops so I can see what it does. And then I just want to move that around a little bit so that I can see. So I did in my weather rose, I feel like I did lose a little bit of that. Okay, but it's still a little wet. So what I can do is just take my brush and maybe just push some of that paint aside so we can see what it does. And that's okay to do. because you want to see your full range, right? So if I just kind of push this aside, that way we can kind of see what it's doing too when it gets a little lighter, when it gets watered down over here in this corner area, right? We want to see that, what happens if we really, really let the water play with our paint, so that we know that, yes, we can use this as a very, very pale pink, right? Or this is just a hint to a sky one day. We don't have to use it full-fledged, you know, bright as it can go. And I think sometimes when we don't do these swatches and we don't know our full range, maybe we don't always use our paints to the full extent. Another thing that I recommend that I feel like maybe sometimes we forget, and I forget too, is to make a color chart. And I feel it opens your eyes up so much to colors and their combinations and what they mix well with. And maybe you're in a rut, maybe you forget, maybe, you know, life just gets busy and we sometimes forget what things can do. And so making a little color chart can be really useful to play with your colors and to maybe inspire yourself to get back into a certain range of colors or something. And maybe if you're not good with mixing, maybe you want to work on color theory, take some basic colors, take seven colors, you know, a red, an orange, a yellow, those kind of things, and just see what they, make a color chart and see what can happen. I feel like a lot of times that can kind of light a fire, right? Okay, so now we have ultramarine magenta. That one is done. And already 2 of these have taken over 10 minutes. So you're not trying to rush these, right? You're trying to get some swatches that really, really represent the color and the pigments and the maker that you're working with, right? So that you're not doing a disservice for them, disservice for yourself, disservice for the colors. You're making sure that you're really seeing all that they can do, their full extent, their full range, right? So here we are with shadow purple. I did use a little bit of the shadow purple just to kind of see where my water is going. And it also just gives you a good base for this light corner. And I kind of love seeing how light it can go. I mean, now you can see this shadow purple is the perfect cotton candy pink. And you know what, honestly, I didn't really know that. So by doing this swatch, I learned something new, and I've used these colors hundreds and hundreds of times, right? Over and over and over. I've even swatched these colors plenty of times. So for me, that's pretty cool. And I'm just saying, you can always learn something new. You may think, oh, I don't really want to waste my time doing that. I definitely don't need a stamp. And no, you don't need the stamp. Is the stamp fun and awesome? Yes. Do you need it? No. I think it's a great little bonus if you are even half as passionate as me about watercolor. I would say the stamp is a super nice treat and a super nice way to organize your colors and keep track. And you know, you don't just have to use them for Masha because it's a Masha stamp. I use it for my other paint makers too, and it's great. So this shadow purple is a beautiful dark purple, and I am just with pink, right? As you can see, I am just dropping in more color and teasing it again into space where I want it. And I want to get much more up here in this left-hand starting point corner so we can see its full range. And you can already see it's doing amazing, beautiful things. It reminds me slightly of an ultramarine, not ultramarine magenta. No, rose of ultramarine, sorry. I'm all over the place. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more. I went too heavy right? So I'm just gonna push it all. And yeah, I'm just gonna push it that way. Maybe pull a little bit down here. I might leave that. I think that's really pretty. I think this is a lot of water over here in this corner, so I might pick up some of that water. Maybe that water too down there. Maybe pull a little bit more. I feel like I went heavy on that. Okay, let's do our mass tone, and then we'll come back and make sure that we have enough paint on our square part of our swatch, our rectangular part of our swatch. So I'm just using a round 6. Again, it's an inexpensive brush. Just something, when I mix a lot of colors, I will often just use an inexpensive brush. I won't use my Polina or my Shimoni, or sometimes I'll use my Tintorettos. They're not super pricey, so I don't feel too guilty using those. But I will often just use a round for this kind of thing. But use what you're comfortable with. This one just happens to have a really nice tip, so I like to use it on these little squares. Gets the paint exactly where I want it to go, and stays in the lines as much as I possibly can, because I am that child and adult who does not like to color outside the lines, which is ironic because I don't paint by the rules. So I don't know where that even comes from. Okay, I am going to get a little more color up in that left-hand side, just because I can see now how dark it can go. And I could even get that mask tone a little bit darker, but I'm gonna leave it like this. I think I'm happy with this swatch. I could put a little more water right there, which just means picking up a little bit more water. Just, these swatches are for you, right? So if you like them a certain way and you want them all dark, then that would be what works for you. But I think this is, again, I'm gonna go say this again, it is a fun test because you see the range of the colors. You see what they can do in their full glory, right? Okay, last one, we're on to ultramarine purple. Okay, so again, I'm just going to wet my rectangular shape. And again, you can do any shape you wanted if you weren't using a stamp. You can do, it's fun to just do sometimes circles next to each other and let the circles touch if you're just playing with color. But for swatches, these are a really nice way to do it. It's a really nice way also to be able to show your friends, right? Maybe they're like, hey, Amber, what's your favorite Masha color? And I can be like, hey, check out these 4 purple pinks, you know? And you can all see them in their full glory versus me just whipping out a quick swatch, which gives you a great idea. But this really, you know, side by side especially, so you can say, what's the difference between ultramarine purple and ultramarine magenta, Amber? And I can be like, hey, I can show you. Because I have all my swatches organized inside of a binder also. And so I've been working through getting that all set up. Mind you, it's not complete at all. I go slow. As you can see, these are almost taking me, we're on 17 minutes now. So these are not quick, by all means, if you're doing them, you know, mindfully and carefully, kind of watching what you're doing and, you know, being, I wouldn't say meticulous because I have made mistakes. I have colored outside the line, but they're not the fastest things. And so I will often turn on a show or something and just kind of watch something or an audiobook and listen to something while I do these. And I usually do about 4 at a time. I've put no pressure on myself. I didn't want to try to get through them all. Been there, done that with certain things, and it kind of sucks it kind of puts a bad pressure on myself. And so I've just kind of been doing them when I feel like it. And I've also been doing my shimmer collection as well. So that'll be a fun one to see on black paper, I feel. Okay, so we are just going along here, slowly but surely, getting this darkest there. I went outside the line again. Ay. My inner child's like, no, do it over again. But I won't, don't worry. Okay, so there we are. Just getting that last bit of dark in there. Almost as dark as I could go. I could go a little bit darker. I think I'm going to leave it because I don't usually go that dark in real life anyway. So it doesn't make super sense for me to do these too dark, the mask tone areas, because again, I don't go that dark in real life. Not in real life, you know what I mean? In my art practice. Okay, so there's a lot of water pooling at the bottom here. I'm going to suck it up with my brush. I just dried my brush off on a cloth. I'm going to bring a little bit of water back in here to kind of move this around just a little bit. I'm gonna look in my camera. I wasn't super consistent, so I guess, sorry, hiccup. I should add just a little bit of color here. And then just pick up a little bit more water at the bottom there. And still not like the other ones. So I'm gonna fiddle with it until it's more like the other ones. There we go. Okay, I feel like that might be a little more. Let's pull that in there just a little bit. Maybe swoosh it around a little bit. Then just pick that up. Let me stand up and look. It's always a good idea to stand up and look at your stuff to see what's going on here. Why don't we take a look and see what we think of the difference of these? Okay, so here's my, let's scooch these up so you can actually see. There's my original ultramarine, all dark one color. So we're getting a good difference. Weathered rose, I feel like definitely improved. But again, you have different stuff going on. You can really see the yellow in this, the gold yellow in this one. And so here we have ultramarine purple. They almost look like different colors, don't they? It's amazing how different the colors can look per swatch. I mean, often they look the same, but can you see, like, I wanted to get rid of those watermarks, so that's the main reason I redid these for you. And I also just wanted to show how to go about best practices for making good swatches that look good and can portray what you really want them to portray, and so that you have a good idea of what your paints can do. Hey, thank you so much for joining. If you have any other questions, reach out. I'll be happy to answer them, or maybe you can use some of the bits to incorporate into your swatching, and mostly just have fun with it. If this isn't your cup of tea, definitely don't do it. Do what is fun for you, but if you do want to explore your colors more, definitely feel this is a great avenue, a great opportunity. So enjoy your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.